Hi there, welcome to Glen Talks, where we talk about all things in the world of business and the local community. We offer inclusive insights and exclusive experiences. Today's guest is a staunch advocate for workers' rights, serving as legal counsel for the Hospital Employees Union. She's also the vice president of the Surrey Women's Centre and is very, very active in her local community. She's also running up for the upcoming provincial election, and we welcome Jessie Sun to the show. Thanks for joining us, Jessie.
Thank you so much for having me, Serena. It's wonderful to be here.
So you've got a fantastic history that spans the globe. It'd be really interesting to hear a lot about kind of what led you into those roles and what you're able to help take that into your current role that you have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I've had, as you said, a lot of different jobs. I've worked a little bit in taxation, and I was part of the Public Service Alliance of Canada as a union. And then after law school, I worked I worked a lot of different jobs. I was able to intern with the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists. So that was a whole different world that I didn't know anything about, that I got to work with them and work on a regulatory frame. The coolest job I ever did was I worked for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime in Bangkok. So for a whole summer, I lived there. I worked with a team on different projects like bringing in anti-human trafficking laws, anti-child pornography laws into countries that didn't have them. So that was really cool. And after I finished law school, I did a little bit of family law, a little bit of corporate, very limited. But I really found my passion in what I do now, which I'm a labor and human rights lawyer with the Hospital Employees Union. So there, I get to fight for workers' rights every single day. I get to fight to ensure that people have fair wages, safe working conditions. They're not facing discrimination in the workplace. And yeah, it's one of, honestly, the most fulfilling things I've ever
done. So you've also been deeply involved in the community, serving as vice president of the Surrey Women's Centre. So what motivated you to kind of take on these roles and get more involved in the local community?
Yeah, so I've been involved in my community since like a young age. I think it's our responsibility to be involved in our community. It's important that any skills and knowledge we have, we're bringing that to the table with different organizations, and also that our voice is represented there, right? So with the Women's Center, I was really passionate about that since I was in school. It was really important to me that we were supporting women and children that were leaving really vulnerable situations, and that they had the supports to know that they didn't have to stay in violent, domestically abusive situations just because there was no support there. So we really helped to ensure that we're working with those groups and providing support so that they know that there's a community here and you can have the supports to stand on your own 2 feet and leave these situations where there's terrible outcomes that can happen. And, October is Intimate Partner Violence Awareness Month. I think it's really timely to have that discussion to know that, women are, a lot of people, but women specifically, are dealing with a lot of these issues in their homes. And there's a lot of reasons women might not leave situations. And we really try to support women to have the resources, the supports in place to leave really difficult situations.
Mm-hmm. And the government in the last few years, they brought in 5 days paid leave for women that are fleeing domestic violence. Mm-hmm. Can you share a little bit of that experience and what you can kind of offer in terms of advice for local businesses?
Yeah, this is something that's really important because when someone's going through one of the worst situations in their entire lives, there's so many elements in play to then have to think about how am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to have a salary this week? It's just, you shouldn't have to think about those things. So we need to make sure that our people are supported in order to make sure that they're good workers, right? So that relationship between businesses and workers is really important. I think businesses and workers are both needed to provide a stable economy, and they're both the backbones of our economy. So when businesses support workers in this way, whether it's 5 days paid sick leave, which were also introduced, or it's 5 days paid leave for someone leaving domestically abusive situation, what that means is that you care about your people, you're supporting them, and you're making sure that their well-being is first, and then they in turn are, taking care of the company as well in being a good worker.
So what inspired you to take the jump from running from community activism into running for office? And how did you feel it was the right time?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's ever the right time to enter politics. I think it's kind of one of those things where, even for myself, like honestly, I will say that sometimes it feels like something you do later. Sometimes you do when you're retired from your job. But we need those voices at the table. We need to make sure that, so many things that affect us, healthcare, housing, education, those are things that affect us when we're young and when we're older. So we need those voices at the table when those decisions are being made. And I felt that really strongly in the work that I was doing, that there were voices missing, whether it was my day job, whether it was the volunteer work I do. So I said, okay, if I'm going to think that, I have to be willing to put my name forward. And I've been really lucky to have really supportive mentors and team around me that supported me, because it's really important to have the diversity at the table, including age diversity, gender diversity, racial diversity, because decisions are going to affect all of us. And we need to make sure that we're at the table to make those decisions.
Awesome. So jumping into the election seat, it's kind of materialized a little bit quickly following the announcement of a retirement of a long-standing person in office. What sort of challenges have you faced so far, and what have you learned kind of about yourself and the community? I think the community needing a chance to kind of get to know you, from your local community. What can you kind of share with people that might not know Jessie?
Yeah. So this has definitely been a whirlwind, but I've been very lucky to have a supportive team. The family is really supportive. The team is very supportive. And as you said, the person that's retiring is Harry Baines after 20 years of being a MLA and a labor minister and such a force for workers in this community. So I think knowing that he was going to be retiring and that we were losing such a strong labor advocate in government for us, I knew that we needed to make sure that someone stepping to that seat had that same labor background that was going to be a fighter for workers. So that was something that inspired me. But it has been very different than my day job, right? It's very much, but I do love it. I love that we're meeting with the community. I'm meeting people where they are, seeing what their concerns are, not going and saying, here's what I see. It's, what do you see? And how can I fight for you? How can I make sure your voice is heard in legislature? So it's been a wonderful journey, very fast paced, but we're here for it, and thankfully have a lot of support in it.
And so, speaking of drawing from your background, what kind of assurances can you give the local community that you'd be able to take up the challenge?
Yeah. So one, I grew up here, right? So I know what the local landscape of Surrey is. I know that for so long, Surrey was ignored by previous governments. People in those governments are currently running under a different label now and trying to become like a fresh new party. But these are the same people that ignored Surrey for so long, didn't invest in our schools, didn't build the hospital or the healthcare needs that we have, didn't build the sky trains. And growing up, I saw that failure. I was in school when the Liberal government at the time, where now the Conservatives with John Ross said, were fighting with teachers, increasing class sizes. I was in school at the time. I saw the effects of that. I saw when our healthcare workers in the HU were fired. Over 8,500 workers were fired. Their jobs were privatized. Their wages were cut in half. We felt these effects, and seeing those things live, being from the community, and also in the different volunteer work I do, it's important for me and for people to know that I'm committed to this community, and I want to make a difference here and make sure that there's a very strong voice for our community in Victoria that's fighting for us always. And again, when I'm here and every day, the door's open. Come to the office, have conversation, call me. Let's see what the issues are, and then let me take those forward to make sure that we're not being ignored here in Surrey and that we're being taken care of just like other places as well.
Awesome. So you brought up some of the themes: housing, healthcare, public safety. I think housing affordability is such a critical issue for a lot of people, particularly, historically, Surrey's kind of been like a lower rent area, but you can't escape these huge increases that have been happening to rent. So what specific policies do you plan to push to try and ensure more people have access to affordable housing?
Yeah. So I think a right to a house is everyone's human right? Everyone should have right to housing. And we're seeing this globally and throughout Canada and here in BC, where rents are increasing, housing prices are increasing, and we're being priced out. So as a young person myself, I know that the dream that we were told is go to school, get a job, work hard, and you'll get a house, but you'll be able to afford a house. And that dream, it seems further and further away for so many people. So we want to bring that dream back. We want to make sure that people know that there's a place here for them in Surrey, in British Columbia, and they can afford homes. So the BCNDP has a plan to create over 300,000 middle-class homes that are affordable and that people can actually get into and start their homes with. And I think a really big program that the NDP is bringing in that's really like highlight for first-time home buyers is that if you can qualify for a home, if you can qualify for 60% of the value of a home, that the government would put in the other 40%, and you'd only have to pay that back when you either sell the home or after 25 years on the mortgage. So that what that's doing is really opening up the market of as first-time homebuyers, that you can actually enter the market, right? That you can have that. And also with the rental market, it's important that there's units to be rented. So the NDP government recognizes that houses are for people, houses are not for profits. So if there's people buying up houses and they're sitting empty, there's a speculation tax that they have to pay an extra tax. And what that's actually done is increased more homes on the market to be rented by over 20,000 new units. And that's houses that people can get into. And, yes, rents are being raised, but for the first time in Vancouver, we're actually seeing rents come down. Where everywhere else they're, around the world, they're going up, around the country, they're going up. We're seeing them come down. And that's due to the initiatives that the BCNDP are taking to ensure that everyone has access to a good home.
Now, along with renters kind of feeling the squeeze, COVID presented a lot of unique challenges for a whole lot, everybody, obviously. Yeah. Small businesses are kind of feeling the pinch and struggling to keep up and stay afloat. Mm-hmm. What sort of supports do you guys have in place for businesses? Yeah, so I think, as I said, small businesses are like the backbone of our communities. They're working people. These aren't big businesses. These are people, mom and pop shops. These are people just trying to put food on the table and also supporting workers. So it's really important that for a strong economy, we're supporting small businesses and we're supporting workers that they hire. So we have one of the lowest small business rates, tax rates, and this is far lower than it was under the previous governments. So we know that that's something that's important to ensure that there are profits coming in that are going back into the community. Also with that, there's an employer health tax. Those introduced over 90% of small businesses don't have to pay an employer health tax because we've doubled the threshold level. So that is also taking a pinch off of small businesses. We also supported small businesses through the pandemic with many grants and loan programs. So we want to make sure that we are supporting small businesses and making sure that they can continue to succeed, because their success lies the success of our community. And you've spoken on your commitment to improving healthcare and housing. What concrete steps do you think will be taken in the first term to begin tackling some of these issues? We talked a little bit about housing already. Yeah, so with healthcare, it's really important to me. Working with the Hospital Employees Union, I'm seeing what the importance of a strong healthcare system is. And we're seeing that pinch, right? We're seeing that with immigration going out post-COVID, that there's a lot of strain on our healthcare system. So we need to make sure that we're investing in healthcare. This is not, when people are struggling, this isn't the time to make cuts. It's the time to invest in our systems. So here in Surrey, for example, we're building a new hospital in Surrey-Cloverdale. It's going to have a regional cancer care center, which is something that the professionals have determined that's what we need. We have an aging population and we need to make sure that we can care for them right here. So that's really important. And that's already being built. If you go to Cloverdale, you can see over 250 people working there every day. And, soon enough that will be built, and but we still need to continue to do more. So we're building a new acute care tower at Surrey Memorial Hospital, expanding those services as well, making sure we have the facilities. So we build the facilities, but we also need people to work in these facilities. So with that, we've added over 120 seats to the UBC Medical School. So kids can actually go to school here and stay here, right? And SFU Surrey, we're building a new medical school there as well. Because the goal is for people to get educated here, serve your communities. And that's what the research shows, that when they are going to school here, that they will go back to their, stay in their communities to serve residents. So all of this is really important. And we've also fast-tracked when there's international doctors and nurses coming back coming here, that we can fast-track their program with nurses within 90 days, with doctors a year to 2 years, under supervision and working with other doctors and nurses, that they can be trained here and we can fill that healthcare worker shortage that we have. So we need to continue to invest in these systems so that we can get over this hump of having the push on healthcare, and we can actually have the healthcare for everyone when they need it, that they have access to healthcare. highest kind of crime cities
Mhm.
in the world for a while. But that's changed a little bit. When we've had, a changing of the guard, or we're in the process of a changing of the guard with the Surrey police force. And I understand you have done a little bit of work in the past as well in that regard. How are we going to tackle some of this public safety issue? Because it's a rampant issue, and a lot of it also stems around mental health and homelessness as well.
Mhm.
How can we effectively tackle that?
Yeah, no, I think safety in Surrey has always been a really big concern, and kind of as you say, the running joke about Surrey, right? And really, when people talk about that, it made me upset, because that just means that Surrey wasn't getting the resources it needed to properly tackle these issues of safety. People are making Surrey home because they want a safe place. They want to know that when they're at home, they're going to work, they're in their communities, they're going to be safe. And we need to make sure that that's happening. So I think, as you mentioned, I was involved with the Surrey Police Board. So when a decision was already made by the city to move from a regional to a municipal police service, I put my name forward to be a part of that oversight body, because we need, again, if you're not sitting at the table, you're not part of the decision making. And having grown up here, I saw people that I went to school with get involved in gang life. I saw the effects that one wrong decision can have on your life, and wanted to make sure that if we're building a new police service, it was responsive to the needs of the residents and also reflective of the community. Right? So I want officers to look like the community that it represents. I want to make sure that we're doing work in a culturally sensitive and trauma-informed manner, that we're not just using, if we're changing, let's make real changes and make sure that we're giving police officers the resources, the new knowledge to work with the community in partnership. And that was the reason I joined the police board. And now we're on the verge of it changing, as you said, a transition where they'll be taking over soon. But the real big point of that is that the RCMP have done a wonderful job here for decades. And they're working collectively and collaboratively. And we love that. And what we ultimately want is to make sure whatever police service it is, and now with the Surrey Police coming in, that we're well resourced, that we have the police officers so that when someone calls the police, they know that someone's going to answer. Right? So that's the main concern. And BC NDP, we've hired over 250 police officers during our term, and we've also created a new integrated gang enforcement task force. So that's really important, because those are some of the issues that we see here in Surrey, right? That a lot of people outside of Surrey see. So we need to make sure we're addressing those issues. And that's on the reactive element, which we always will need, but prevention is also key. Right? So when it comes to these issues of gang violence, how are we making sure that we have programs in place to support kids when they're in those crucial years, that we can sway them away from those? We can create programs, we can create sports, funding sports, making sure that kids have alternatives to not get involved. When it comes to mental health and homelessness issues, how are we addressing these issues to make sure there's supports in place so that people that are dealing with mental health issues or dealing with on the verge of homelessness, that they don't lead into a life where it leads to a life of crime? How do we support them in the front end? How do we make sure they have the resources? And the BCNDP, even in schools, are bringing in a new mental health counselor for every school, because I think that's really important as well. We also need to make sure children are safe in schools. They're not getting bullied. They're not getting harassed, because a lot of the things we can see with certain populations that are marginalized, especially when you look at the 2SL LGBTQIA plus community, is with bullying and harassment. It can lead them to be isolated in their families, in their communities, and it can lead to homelessness. It can lead to a lot of other issues. And it's not just that community, but it's important that all communities, including theirs, we're supporting them and we're providing resources. We're making sure they feel included, that they're part of, they know that we're all here. So it's not leading to these elements of, the road to homelessness and crime and all of that. So we need to work on both sides of prevention, and when there is an issue, that we make sure that the police can actually get there and someone will be there to answer the call when someone calls in the police.
And for some people, you're also there to kind of help answer the call when people's rights are being trampled on as well. And you've got a bit of a servant heart. So what sparked you into getting involved with human rights?
Yeah, I'm so lucky, first off, that I've been able to do this work. I really consider myself the lucky one that I get to fight for people that, when I think about it, even in the union, if it wasn't for the union, if it wasn't for us, when employers are overstepping and trampling on people's rights, they wouldn't have someone to fight, right? So I'm really lucky that I get to do that. A lot of our work force is our new immigrants, our racialized women, and we don't know if they would have said something or stepped up in situations where their human rights are being violated unless we were there. So very lucky to do that. But overall, I think we all have to fight for each other's human rights. Like if one of us isn't safe, one of our communities isn't safe, none of us are. And it's only a matter of time before everyone's rights are being, pushed back on and limited. So I've been very fortunate that in the spaces I've been able to do this. But from a young age, I saw, you can see inequalities. You can see when certain communities aren't being treated the same. You can see when men and women aren't being seen as equals. You can see all of these things. And if you ask my parents, they'll say, like, since a young age, I've always asked the question of, like, if he can do that, why can't I? Or if this person's doing that, why can't they do this? And always had that kind of questioning mind, which has led me to say, no, we're all equal. And if someone is being bullied or harassed or not treated equally, we need to fight for them and make sure that they are, because here in Canada, we are all equal and we should all have the same opportunities.
And can you share, is there any stories or anything that stand out for you that was kind of like a big moment, a big win that you were able to have either, for yourself or advocating for others, that you would consider, and at the end of the day, when Jessie's hanging up whatever hat she's wearing at the end of her career, that she can look back and think that that was a really, really strong moment for you?
Yeah, there's a few moments, but and they're not like huge. They're just like, they are huge, but they're not. They're just something that like will always stick with me. So I remember even when COVID had started, there was a lot of worry in the healthcare field. What was happening? We didn't know what it would mean. And I remember there was a woman at the time, one of our members, that was pregnant and couldn't go into the workplace, or was afraid, right? Was rightfully afraid and was being denied any kind of leave. And not only that, she lived with elderly parents. She was pregnant at the time, had young children, and said, I can't come in because I have elderly parents. I don't have anyone to take care of them. My kids aren't going to school right now. They're at home. All of these balancing family responsibilities. And the employer was saying, too bad, so sad. You need to come in and you don't have access to any kind of leave. And just the robotic answer, like not paying attention to this person's individual circumstances, that for one, her children are at home. Who's supposed to take care of them? Two, we don't know what this pandemic looks like. And you have elderly parents who we're also worried about, and she's seen that at home, and you're pregnant. So you have your own immune compromised position in this situation. And the employer was saying, had fired her actually in the situation because she didn't come into a shift. And of course, I was ready to run with that. And we were so lucky that at the end of that, we fought for her. We were able to get her back to work. We were able to have her back wages paid for her. We were able to still have her leave be accommodated in a way where she could take care of the kids and work differently. But it was these kind of moments that if we weren't there to step in, someone would have lost their job. They're the only sole provider in their household for a multi-generational family, like in the middle of a pandemic, all of these things, and it would have been no support. And just seeing that and being able to get this person back to work and have these things. And I have multiple stories like that, but I think the collective of that is what's really important, that we're able to help workers fight to ensure that their rights are being respected. They can take care of their families, especially in moments where, we see this, I'd see it in the workplace, where an employer can forget all the good things you've done and all of a sudden focus on one thing to try to terminate you or, get rid of you in the workplace, and say, no, that's not how it works. Hold on. They have, us to fight for them, and we're going to be here to make sure that their rights are respected.
So Surrey has a really diverse group of constituents. Lots of people coming, lots of newcomers to Canada, lots of people from various backgrounds, and the makeup of Surrey has changed so much. And business still kind of operates in a bit of a colonial fashion. And we've heard this in one of the other interviews of a movement to kind of help decolonize the workplace a little bit. And I think what was being referenced there is, people are different, and we need to adjust the workplaces to accommodate, so that those people are able to function appropriately and feel supported in their workplace. So what kind of advice would you give small businesses around the duty to accommodate?
Yeah, so as you said, I think one of the things that's the best part of Surrey is the diversity and how many people from all walks of life have come here to make Surrey their home. And it's really the talent of our city. So I think it's really important for small businesses to know and be open to listening to their workforce. So what we would often see, hopefully not as too often, but we did see it here and there, was where people would need accommodation for, let's say, a religious holiday. And an employer that was from a different background wouldn't understand the importance of that, right? And they wouldn't give them the day off or say, we can't accommodate that without even trying to see if someone else can cover a shift, without seeing if there was a way to have them come in for a little bit or whatever it was. They would just deny it because they didn't understand the importance of that request. And I think it's really important. You don't have to know everything, but you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to accommodate people when they have these needs. Just like we get Easter off, we get Christmas off. There's different holidays like Diwali, like Ramadan, and different religions that are just as significant, if not more, even important for someone to not be working that day and be with their families and be able to celebrate those days. So really be responsive to your community, because the better you work with someone, the better they'll work with you. And I think that's just a good life lesson to have. But not only is it a request, it's actually like an obligation. It's a human rights obligation to accommodate your workforce and to not discriminate against someone because of their religious asks or their differences. And this would fall into that as well. So I think for businesses, it's really important that if we take those few seconds at the beginning or a few minutes at the beginning of the situation to try to understand it, it will save you a lot of headache and costs of trying to fight something when someone feels like they've been discriminated against due to their religious beliefs or background in the workplace.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we've got a bit of a rapid fire section where we're going to ask you a number of questions, some of them serious, some of them not so serious, some of them more to get to know you a little bit better. And you are to answer the question within one sentence to one word.
Okay.
So, pressure's on. What is your favorite park in Surrey?
Ooh, Bear Creek Park.
That's fair.
Yeah. But with a lot of track meets happening at Bear Creek Park. So
yeah, and they've got the new roadway going through there as well. Yeah. What is your favorite comfort food?
Pasta. A lot of food, actually. But I'm not doing the good at the one sentence, but pasta, pizza, sushi, all the things. But pasta just warm and cozy, but on your couch while watching a good Netflix show.
What is your secret hidden talent that people might not know about?
I used to sing "Oh Canada" for my high school. I used to sing, and so I can kind of sing a little bit, but not really.
Favorite vacation spot in BC?
Ooh, there's so many of them. Kelowna is one that I love, but I also love Parksville.
Awesome. What is a piece of advice, best piece of advice you've gotten from someone?
I get a lot of good advice. I think it would be to put your best foot forward, try your hardest, and know that at the end of the day, you didn't leave anything on the table. So whatever outcome happens, and I think it's good advice for the election, whatever outcome happens, you tried your best, you made sure to do everything, and you didn't take your foot off the gas too early.
And there's also a saying that I like is, if at first you do succeed, try not to look astonished.
Yeah. That's a good one.
What's the most recent book that you've read?
I'm reading it right now. This Ends With Us. I'm reading it right now. But right now, I haven't read it for 2 weeks, but I'll get back to it in 13 days.
Early bird or night owl?
Night owl.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Most productive time of the day?
Yeah. 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. used to be like my sweet spot for studying in school, but I can't do that anymore. That's too late. But when no one can call you and everyone's sleeping, that's most productive.
Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
I cuddle my dog and my husband on my couch watching a show that's just killing brain cells. Yeah, that's my favorite way. Yeah.
And I guess you already answered this question, but dogs or cats?
Dogs, absolutely.
And what kind of dogs do you got?
I have a Maltese Pomeranian Chihuahua, so just a little.
Oh, wow. Just a bundle of energy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
One of your biggest mentors?
My grandmother. Yeah,
Why?
she really taught me what it means to be a strong woman, and that even if you don't know, you come to this country, you don't know the language, you don't know where your paycheck's going to come from, that you can figure it out and you can support your family and make sure that they're well, and nothing is a hurdle.
If you could be any animal, what would it be and why?
Ooh, probably a koala bear, because I get to sleep for 20 hours a day and I'm really lacking a lot of sleep.
And if you could have dinner with any figure, living or dead, who would it be?
I think Michelle Obama.
And
Yeah.
why?
Well, maybe she'd bring her husband so we could have like a double date, and just love to hear her experience. I think she's so knowledgeable, so educated, so smart and wise. And I would just honestly say nothing and just listen to her speak. All night.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to kind of share and share with any of the viewers about you as you're leading into the final stretch, leading into E-Day?
Yeah, I think it's one thing is really important, that this right to vote here in Canada, it's been really hard won for a lot of different groups, for women, for racial minorities, for so many people. And it's so important that we get out and vote on October 19th. Research the parties, see what your issues are. Come, if you have questions, if you live in our riding especially, come and ask me the questions. Happy to have these conversations. I think it's really important that as candidates, we're there to be responsive to our communities, and we need to be able to answer these questions. People shouldn't be hiding from the tough questions. So ask the questions, figure out where you're voting, and make sure you go out and vote on October 19th and get your families involved. Make it fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Jessie, we have a gift for you as well.
Thank you.
So just to
That's so kind of
thank
you.
and give you a little bit more energy as you go into your
Thank
final
you.
stretch. But thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing a little
kind.
bit about yourself. And is there any other last final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Just thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a wonderful show, and I hope to be back soon.
Well, that's all we have for today's show. Thanks again to Jessie Sun for joining us. It's just a wealth of information and a good opportunity to get to know you a bit better as I need to make up my decision as well coming up into this election. So thanks again for joining us. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and tune in next time as we bring you another interesting story and awesome individual. Take care.